My name is Maya, I'm 29 years old. And for the last 3 years, I've been the secret heart monitor for a man who officially doesn't want me in his family tree. My father, Marcus, is a high-profile neurosurgeon in Chicago. To the world, he's a miracle worker. To me, he's the man who invited me to his retirement gala just so he could seat me at the kitchen staff table and tell the donors I was a distant cousin's troubled daughter he was helping out of Christian charity. I sat there in a dress that cost me 2 months of freelance coding work, watching my half-sister Chloe get toasted for graduating from a college Dad bought her a building to get into. I didn't say anything, not even when Chloe whispered that my presence was lowering the property value of the ballroom. I stayed silent because I was the only one in that room who knew that Marcus's hands had started shaking 6 months ago. I was the one paying his private malpractice insurance premiums in secret so his legacy wouldn't catch a lawsuit before he could retire. I was protecting the man who was currently pretending I didn't exist. Then, the charity turned into a crime. 2 nights ago, Marcus collapsed. Not at home, but in the office of a consultant he wasn't supposed to be seeing. When the ambulance brought him to Northwestern Memorial, his wife, Elena, didn't call me. I found out because I have a Google alert set for his name and the word emergency. I beat her to the ICU by 10 minutes. Elena didn't even look at me when she arrived. She just handed me her coat. "Oh, Maya, since you're already here and clearly have nothing better to do, stay in the waiting room and handle the insurance paperwork. Tell them Marcus is under extreme stress. Don't let them look at his neurological scans. If the board finds out he was symptomatic before the merger, we lose the $20 million payout." I stood there holding her coat, smelling her $400 perfume, and realized they didn't want a daughter. They wanted a cleanup crew. They wanted me to sign my name to a legal lie to save their $20 million. While they planned to kick me back to my studio apartment the second the ink was dry. Stay with me because in about 2 minutes, you're going to see exactly why you should never give admin access to the daughter you've spent a decade humiliating. Trust me, the climax of this hospital visit isn't a recovery, it's a reckoning. I took the insurance forms. I even took Elena's coat. I walked toward the administrator's office, but I didn't turn in the stress diagnosis. I went to the nurse's station and used the bypass code my father gave me a year ago, when he was too drunk to log into his own patient portal. I pulled the real scans. The ones that showed Marcus wasn't just stressed. He was suffering from a condition that meant he should have stopped operating 3 years ago. 3 years of surgeries. 3 years of lives he put at risk while I covered his tracks. I looked at the non-disclosure agreement Elena wanted me to sign. If I signed it, I was an accomplice. If I didn't, the family was bankrupt. My phone vibrated. A text from Chloe. "Dad's fine. Go home. We're having a private family dinner in the VIP wing. You're not on the list." I wasn't on the list. But I was on the server. I didn't go home. I went to the hospital cafeteria, opened my laptop, and started the autopsy of Bennett neurosurgery. And the first thing I found? It wasn't just medical records. It was a life insurance policy taken out on me. 6 months ago. By Elena. I stared at the screen until the pixels started to blur. There it was. A $5 million accidental death policy on Maya Bennett. The beneficiary? Not my father. Not me, Elena. His wife. The woman who had just handed me her coat like I was a coat check girl. She hadn't just been ignoring me for a decade. She'd been betting on my expiration. And the accidental part? It was tied to a travel insurance rider for a trip to the Swiss Alps she'd booked in my name for next month. A gift for my 30th birthday I hadn't even been told about yet. I didn't panic. Panic is for people who don't know how to read a database. I'm a coder. I look for the logic. Why would Elena need $5 million if Marcus was about to clear a $20 million merger payout? I went deeper into the hospital's private billing server. That's when I found the black hole. For the last 3 years. While I was secretly paying Marcus's malpractice premiums to protect his legacy, Elena had been draining the firm's liquidity into a shell company called Ebb Holdings. She wasn't saving the merger for Marcus. She was stripping the ship of its gold before she sank it, with me and my father still on board. I walked back up to the VIP wing. The family-only sign was glowing red over the door. I could hear Chloe's laugh from inside, bright, shallow, and expensive. I watched through the glass as she showed Elena a picture of a new Porsche on her phone. My father lay in the bed, gray and silent, a hero whose hands had failed him years ago. I realized then that Marcus wasn't the villain of the story. He was just the first victim. He had traded his soul for Elena's approval, and now she was ready to cash him in. I stepped into the room. Chloe stopped laughing. Elena didn't even turn around. She just pointed at the door. Maya, I thought I told you to leave. The board is coming in 10 minutes to verify Marcus's stress diagnosis so the merger can proceed. You're a liability in that cheap dress. Get out. I didn't move. I leaned over the bed and whispered into my father's ear, loud enough for the vultures to hear. Dad, I found the Swiss Alps tickets. Are you going too, or am I the only one who isn't supposed to come back? Elena froze. The mask didn't just slip. It shattered. She walked over and grabbed my arm, her nails digging into my skin. You finally lost it, haven't you? The stress of being a failure has made you delusional. Chloe, call security. Tell them Maya is having a breakdown and needs to be escorted to the psych ward for observation. I pulled my arm back and held up my phone. Security is already on their way, Elena. But they aren't here for me. I just sent the real neurological scans, the ones showing 3 years of tremor suppressant abuse to the hospital board's legal counsel. And I CC'd the life insurance investigators on that Alps policy. Chloe screamed that I was ruining everything. Elena's face went a shade of white I'd only seen on marble tombstones. You'll be penniless, she hissed. If the merger fails, your father dies in debt. You're killing him. I looked at my father. He opened his eyes, just for a second. He looked at Elena, then at me. For the first time in 29 years, he didn't look at me like a troubled cousin. He looked at me like an architect. The merger is already dead, Elena, I said, my voice as steady as a heart rate monitor. I didn't just send the scans. I triggered the morality clause in the merger contract. The $20 million is gone. But don't worry. I've already filed the paperwork at the Cook County Courthouse to freeze the Ebb Holdings accounts. You wanted to play the grieving widow? Well, you're about to be a broke defendant instead. The Cook County Courthouse is a place where lives are reduced to paperwork, and today, the paperwork was screaming. Elena stood in the hallway, her designer suit looking like a straitjacket. She wasn't pointing fingers anymore. She wasn't handing me her coat. She was huddled with a lawyer who looked like he'd seen a ghost. Chloe sat on a wooden bench, staring at her phone, probably realizing that the Porsche she'd been bragging about was currently being flagged for repossession. They thought because they owned the house, they owned the truth. They forgot that I'm the one who writes the code that keeps their world running. We didn't even make it past the preliminary hearing. The Abe Holdings documents I'd pulled from the server were so damning the judge didn't even ask for a recess. I watched from the back row as the accidental death policy was entered into evidence. The investigator from the insurance firm didn't look at me. He looked at Elena. Mrs. Bennett, he said, his voice cutting through the room like a scalpel. Why is the IP address used to book these Alps tickets registered to your private salon, while the passenger is listed as a woman you've been trying to commit to a psych ward? Elena tried the grieving wife act one last time. She squeezed out a single tear and whispered that she was only trying to provide a future for the family. But then, the judge looked at the second packet I'd submitted. The one with the malpractice insurance receipts. The ones I'd been paying for 3 years. The judge leaned forward, his eyes narrowing. So while Maya was secretly protecting the firm from bankruptcy, you were actively plotting her disappearance to cover your own embezzlement? The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was heavy. Marcus, my father, was brought in via a video link from the hospital. He looked older, smaller, but his eyes were finely clear. He didn't look at Elena. He looked straight into the camera, looking for me. I knew, he whispered, his voice cracking. I knew Elena was draining the accounts. I was too ashamed to stop her. I thought if I stayed quiet, the family would survive. I didn't realize I was the one feeding my daughter to the wolves. He paused, and the room held its breath. Your Honor, he said, I'm not here to defend my wife. I'm here to testify that every penny Maya spent on this company was a loan I never intended to repay. She didn't fail me. I failed her, and I want the records to show that as of 10 minutes ago, I have transferred my remaining voting shares of Bennett Neurosurgery to Maya. The merger was dead. $20 million was gone. Elena and Chloe walked out of that courthouse into a world where they didn't have a single credit card that worked. Chloe didn't even look at me. She was too busy trying to figure out how to delete the rich girl persona from her Instagram before the comments turned toxic. Elena? She got a subpoena for corporate fraud before she reached the elevators. The $5 million policy she took out on me? It's now the primary evidence in a criminal conspiracy case. I went back to the hospital that night. Not to apologize. Not to fix things. I went to hand Marcus a tablet. On the screen was a new business filing. The Bennett Restructuring Group. No more surgeries. No more lies. Just a firm dedicated to auditing the very medical practices Marcus had almost ruined. I'm 29, and for the first time in my life, I'm not the secret heart monitor. I'm the architect of the reconstruction. People ask me if I regret destroying my family. I tell them I didn't destroy anything. I just stopped holding up the walls of a house that was already on fire. My father is recovering, not as a surgeon, but as a man who finally knows his daughter's name. As for Elena and Chloe, I hope they like the Alps. I hear the view from a public defender's office is very cold this time of year. The truth is like a foundation. If it's built on sand, it's only a matter of time before the tide comes in. I'm Maya, and this was my blueprint for survival. If you stayed until the very end, type blueprint so I know you're a real one. Stay sharp and never let someone treat your loyalty like a luxury. Thanks for watching.